What's good, y'all? It's Dave, and today I'm bringing y'all yet another ranking video. Now, I'm actually surprised I haven't done a video on this specific series yet because it is truly one of my favorite series of all time, and that series is no other than the Tekken fighting game series. Before we get into the ranking, I'm just going to make a quick disclaimer that I'm ranking these games today based on how much fun I personally have with them throughout my life, not due to the lore, because the Tekken story lore, honestly, it's all over the fucking place, and it started going haywire very early on in the series, and I just refused to try to keep up with that shit. So without further ado, let's get into the ranking. Okay, y'all, so y'all know the drill. So right now I got all the games that I never played. I put them always at the bottom, and Tekken really doesn't have any bad titles, so I just put it from best to mid. All right, so let's start with number one. So Tekken 1, I'm gonna say y'all it was mid. The reason why is because this was before my time. This came out in 94. You feel me? I wasn't even thought of until 3 years later. And then even then, I never got to grow up on Tekken number one. It was the later titles that I actually got to grow up on and experience. My first Tekken title ever was number 3. So let me just say that on PlayStation 1, Tekken 3. I know it was Tekken 3 because it was the first game that had Eddie Gordo in it. So that's the one I grew up on and started with. But yeah, right now Tekken 1 is all right. Like I said, I know it's got a nostalgic factor to it, and I know people love that, so I'm not gonna say it was bad, but yeah, it just definitely wasn't the best. All right, next we got Tekken 2. So Tekken 2, I'm gonna put that in the all right section too, because once again, y'all, Tekken 2 just wasn't really, it was very similar. They added some more characters, if I'm not mistaken. I know they did, but it was still pretty much, the same. Now we got Tekken 3. Now Tekken 3, like I said, this is the game I grew up on. This is what introduced me to the Tekken series. And for Tekken 3 and its capabilities, back for a game that was made in 1997, that shit was pretty tight. You know what I'm saying? It was pretty cool, I was very mad because I used to have a PlayStation 1 for a temporary time. My first ever console was a GameCube, but my grandmother bought me a PlayStation 1 because I accidentally broke my GameCube one day. I spilled fucking orange soda, orange Sunkiss to be exact. I don't even know how I did that, but I spilled orange Sunkiss into the open port of the disc tray in my GameCube. So she bought me a PlayStation 1, and this was the first game that I got on there was Tekken 3. So I'm gonna say it was pretty good. All right, next we got Tekken Tag. Now Tekken Tag was also pretty good. This was a very, very good, unique take on Tekken. So basically the roster was bigger, a lot of side characters and stuff like that, that is not always appears in the main entry, and some new characters, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe there were some new characters introduced as well, just to, make up more of the roster. And yeah, it was pretty good. You could fight tag teams. What better mechanic to put in this game? The gameplay and the fighting mechanics were already top tier, and then they actually added tag mechanics. Now, I believe at this point, I believe Dead or Alive had already introduced the tag team mechanics already. All right, I'm not sure if any other Tekken game had the tag mechanics before them, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say they didn't. But otherwise, Tekken Tag was actually pretty freaking good. I'm not going to lie. Tekken 4, y'all. You see, Tekken 4, y'all, when I say this game was no other than a nostalgic masterpiece. Like, y'all, I could sleep and dream about this game. Just the soundtrack, the aesthetically pleasing look. I mean, this game just literally just screams nostalgia. Like, when you fired up your PlayStation 2 in 2001 upon the year of its release, bro, this game was probably the best fucking launch title on the PlayStation 2 ever made. Now, I know we had a whole bunch of other awesome launch titles on PS2, y'all, but when it comes to the fighting genre, you have to give this props, bro. This is quite literally motherfucking Adult Swim type of nostalgia, Tekken 4, okay? So we're gonna put that in the great tier. Next, we got Tekken 5. Now, Tekken 5 was also great, y'all. It absolutely, I want to say it maximized and it pushed the full potential of the PlayStation 2, right? When it comes to the graphics, you can tell there was a definite graphic overhaul between Tekken 4 and Tekken 5 because it was like 4 years apart. So, they had some time to work on Tekken 5, but Tekken 5 was no other, y'all, than once again, a masterpiece, and you can tell this is where the fighting mechanics, is where they definitely, you can tell like the AI is just much more like responsive to the fighting. They are much more, technical, I want to say. I'm going to try to find a better word for that later if I can think of it. But yeah, everything about this game, it was just like a technical gameplay overhaul as well as a graphic overhaul. So we're going to put that in the great tier. All right, next we have Tekken 6. Now, y'all, Tekken 6 is my personal favorite Tekken of all time. Like, I just will not have any better memories with any other fighting game like I did Tekken 6, you guys. Like Tekken 6 was quite literally my high school career in a nutshell, because Tekken 6 during when this came out, I was in middle school. I think Tekken it came out in '09, I believe. Tekken 6. I'm gonna actually double check that really quickly. I'm sorry. So yeah, I just checked. So yeah, this came out in '09. I was correct. So it came out in Japan in '07, arcade and shit, and then it came out on '09 in consoles, and yeah, I was in 8th grade. So going into my high school career, this game, y'all, I could not wait to play this. I had so much fun playing this with friends. This is the only other game that I can think of that I played with friends that I had the most fun with besides Dead or Alive 5 Last Round. That's the only other fighting game that I put hours into with friends other than this one right here, Tekken 6, y'all. The story was dope. You get introduced to Lars. He's trying to take over the Mishima Corporation after Jin has taken control of it with his newfound power. It's just the free roam and stuff inside of the actual story mode. That was super fun because you have small boss fights with actual main characters from the roster, and that shit was very, very fun to do. And then overall, y'all, it was just the sleekness, y'all. The fact that games like this, these types of graphics existed back in '07, this shit was just fucking insane, man. Like the graphics were just a beautiful, 720p. Like, they really, really pushed the graphical capability of that generation of consoles, which is Xbox 360, PS3, etc. All right, so next we got Tekken Tag Tournament 2. Now, Tekken Tag Tournament 2, y'all, not gonna lie, Tekken Tag Tournament 2, that was pretty great for me. I really, really liked basically it had Tekken 6 graphics, but it was just the tag team version, man. We had Slim Bob, that was very, very good to see, just these extra characters, that helped fill up the roster a little bit. We had Christy, Eddie's counterpart that knows the capoeira fighting style, just like he does. This was absolutely something that I did enjoy. I did not enjoy it as much as I did Tekken 6, because at this point, the Tekken, I was a little like, I was like, okay, it was cool. This game made some noise, but it just did not make as much noise, or at least that was brought to my attention, like Tekken 6 did. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in the great tier here, and then we have the Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Now, I literally just played this game on my YouTube channel, on this channel here. So if y'all want to go check that out, go ahead. It's one of my most recent videos. And yeah, basically this flopped. I was very upset that this game did not reach its full potential, but I understand why it didn't. So basically this game was good. Like, absolutely it was good, because first of all, the gameplay mechanics, they were crisp. Now, the only complaint that I had about it when I first played this, when it came out in 2013, I complained about how they went with the Street Fighter art style for the game. I wanted to see what these Street Fighter characters, I wanted to see what they would look like in the actual Tekken models, like how they will look like as Tekken characters, rather, because the art styles between these games are different. And when I thought about it at the time, I was like, yeah, that's probably going to be a bad idea, because a lot of them characters from Tekken, I'm sorry, a lot of those characters from Street Fighter being brought to life as like 3D models, like Tekken graphics, they probably will look ugly. I'm just saying, because the comic book art style, or the comic style that Street Fighter has, it's always gave it its charm. So I'm gonna put this in good, because like I said, y'all, they just dropped the bag with this game. They fumbled this. This was probably the biggest crossover that we've ever seen between two fighting game giants in the industry, and they just fumbled it. So I'm gonna give it a good. All right, so we got Tekken 7. Tekken 7 I absolutely did have fun with here. I'm not gonna lie, I did have fun with Tekken 7. A lot of fun, because now we're in 1080p 4K. They have super finisher moves now. That is absolutely something that was great. I've always liked the idea of doing like an overdrive move or something like that, or like an ultimate move, and they finally introduced that in Tekken 7. And then also they have the very, very cool victory scene. Like, if you hit somebody with this and it actually finishes off your opponent, it will do a nice little cool freeze frame before they KO. It's actually pretty tight. And then finally, y'all, we got Tekken 8, y'all. Like I said, I have not really played Tekken 8 a lot. I really haven't. I've played it a decent amount, but I have not played it a lot. The reason why I haven't played it a lot is just simply because it's just like, man, the Tekken series is just, You know, it's losing its charm, y'all. Like, you know, it's always going to be fun to play. But as far as the charm goes and the fighting and the characters and the story and stuff like that, like, I have no fucking idea what's going on with Tekken 8 in the roster. I've even played the story mode a decent way through, and I still just have no godly idea what the fuck is going on in the story. Like I said, the lore after Tekken like 3, it just fucking just goes just multiple ways. Like, but that's Japanese fighting game lore for you, because Dead or Alive, the fighting series, that lore doesn't make any sense either. That shit just goes all over the place after like the third or fourth installment. Okay, y'all, so that was my ranking, my personal ranking on the Tekken series. Like I said, y'all, please feel free to leave me fun fact. You know, I always encourage that, you know, because like I said, you know, I'm always interested in learning extra lore about these games other than the lore that I've discovered through my own research. But like I said at the beginning, I was going to rank these based on how much personal fun I have with these titles. That's how I rank them. I'm not ranking them on the technically best to worst and all that. No, I'm just ranking them based on how much fun I have with them, because I feel like that's truly the best way to rank a game. You know, it's not biased, because at the end of the day, y'all, a Tekken 1, that shit's always gonna be technologically disadvantaged towards something like Tekken 6. You know, they're a fucking decade apart. Of course, this game is technically going to be better, but we don't need to go off of that. We need to go off of what we had fun with. But that's gonna do it for me, y'all. It's been your boy Dave, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.